Hi everyone, I'm Gurjashan Singh, and today I'm here for the Summer Innovation Challenge with Project Planning Workshop. Welcome to the participants who were able to make it out. Thank you for joining. And then for others who couldn't make it, we're recording the session for you so you can view later. There are some additional resources that will be coming along with the presentation. So if you're in the session, you can access them right away as we put them in the chat later in the session. And for others, you can reach out to the team and they'll be attached in communications along with the recording. We'll begin with a land acknowledgement. And for that, I want to acknowledge that my ancestors are from Punjab, which is in north of India, and the land I currently live and learn on is the traditional and ancestor territory of the Wendat, Seneca, and Mississaugas of the Credit. Um, Toronto also remains home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and I am very grateful for this opportunity to learn and grow on this land. You see attached is a picture of Indigenous house here at University of Toronto Scarborough. This is the campus I am at right now, and it's newly inaugurated, and it's one of the largest commitments towards reconciliation and indigenization at the North American post-secondary institution. And I'm grateful to be in a space where I get access to learnings about the land and to connect more with the people of the land here. So just to give you a brief idea of how the presentation will run, we'll do brief introductions. Then we'll move into impact planning. We'll also be watching a short video, which will be followed by four lenses, ripple mapping, collective enoughness, and then we'll do a planning exercise and wrap up the presentation. If you're not familiar with any of these words, don't worry, don't panic. You're not expected to know them. And hopefully by the end of the session, you know what these are. And sort of this workshop supports you in your not only current projects you're working on in your pitch, but also in your future projects. So a little bit about myself. My full name is Gurjashan Singh Tummi, pronounced he, him. I grew up in a village called Sonti in Punjab. I'm currently based in Toronto. I'm an impact management student at University of Toronto. I'm also a member of the digital equity work group at the Northeast Toronto Local Immigration Partnership. I am the interim treasurer and a director for South Asian Legal Clinic of BC, and I also volunteer with another nonprofit called Khalsa Aid. Uh, Over the past years, I've also been associated with organizations like UNESCO, uh, and a lot of my work has revolved around youth engagement, resettlement, uh, community practice, food sovereignty, and cross-cultural collaborations. A proverb that I go by is progress is better than perfection. And now we'll move into learning more about all the attendees who are here. So since there's only a few of us here, what we'll do is do an open mic situation where I ask you to share your name, pronoun, and something that brought you joy. And to model that, um, something that brought me joy this week, I'd say, um, if I we had last week of classes, and at the end, our group of friends was able to go for a dinner post our class, and that brought a lot of joy. We all of us met each other for the first time at the beginning of the class. It was nice to form a friendship and then have a successful group come out of a course. So that's something that brought me joy this week. And I'll pass it on to Jessica. And before that, if you're not comfortable sharing your audio, you can also put this in the chat.
Yeah, for sure. So I think in terms of, as some folks know, my name is Jessica, pronouns she, her. And I'll say something that brought me joy this week was I was running a couple errands earlier this week and I came across, if anyone's heard of these, like what Dippin' Dots is, and so they're the little like nitrogen ice cream kind of spheres. I have fond memories of having them when I was a kid, and so I found them just like at the post office in a little freezer. So I picked up a couple and I just kind of sat while watching shows with friends and eating Dippin' Dots. And so that brought me joy is just like the memories plus also the ice cream. So
Do you want to pass it on to someone else?
for sure. So I'll pass it on to Hugo.
Thank you. So hi, I'm Hugo, he, him. And I think in the past week, it was all a bit hectic with YIC, and our project is also part of our university Enactus chapter, and we had participated in a competition for them as well, and we had to prepare a pitch. So it was really hectic, but I do think I got a lot of joy out of it. I mean, every day just like learning new things that add like 1,000 layers to the idea that you thought you had like you thought you could conceptualize its shape, but every day you just learn something new that adds so much potential to what you're already building. So I think that's been really exciting, not only this past week, but for the past handful of weeks since the beginning of this project in late June. And I'll
Thank you,
pass it
Hugo.
on to Shitangshu.
Sure. So hi folks. So my name is Shitangshu. I pronounce he him his. I'm excited to be a part of the YC team. And something that actually brought me joy was we welcomed a new member to our kind of staffing team recently, and they've been doing wonderful. And then it was something that took a lot of the work and behind the scenes, just even kind of security logistics for it. But they've been doing a wonderful job. So yeah, just very grateful to have the team that we have broadly. Something else I'll just add as well is I got a chance to meet with a couple of the teams doing workshops and things, and then that's always it's always fun to kind of office hours too, and it's always fun to kind of work with teams and see all the cool things you're building. So yeah, I guess those are some things that brought me joy. Oh, and Avezi, I will pass it off to you.
Thank you, Shitangshu. Hi, everyone. My name is Avezi, and my pronouns are she, her. Something that brought me joy this week was that I was able to go to a music show with some of my friends, and I danced a lot, and it really was just my highlight of the week, and that was amazing for me.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. And now that we have grounded ourselves a bit and we know a little bit more about each other, we'll move into our next sections of the workshop. And for today, to guide us through the workshop, I'll be going with an example. So we'll be using the example of an urban farmer named Alex, who's been hit by floods year over year. And due to this, Alex is losing their crops, and obviously the income is dropping. The produce from the farm actually supports local food banks, and Alex wants to have a sustainable future, so is interested in exploring not only options to increase their income in a sustainable fashion, but also how they can support their community and have an increased social impact while scaling their farm. So this is the example we'll be leading with, and moving along. If we have time at the end, we can also come back to some of your ideas that you're working on and have some discussions about them later as well. So essentially, there there are a few ways that Alex can grow their farm, but also in terms of the growth, they'd be looking at two different approaches. First, in the interim or in the short term, where they'd want to focus on making sure that they know what's going on, they're recognizing the problems, and then after they have done the initial analysis or the audit, they move to their immediate focus, which is to save the crops. And in the long term, to transition into a more sustainable enterprise, look at net zero transitions or different types of urban farming that can be adopted. For example, the picture you see on the screen is a rooftop urban farm that supports a community garden. So this essentially also relates back to the rubric that you've been provided for the innovation challenge, where not only are you required to identify a problem, but also come up with a quality based innovation that's grounded in environmental and social impact. And you'll also in this process be reviewed based on how you're planning this implementation, how aware are you of your context and different variables and barriers that are in the environment, and how are you considering all these different factors into your launch plan. To get a better understanding of how you can move along with some of these ideas and questions, we will be looking at a TEDx video. Please let me know if you can hear this once I hit the play button, and if you don't, please send a message or send an alert so I can fix that.
I think the volume isn't coming across on my end.
Okay, let's see.
I think if you stop screen sharing and share with, when you screen shares, just share with audio, it should work. We can also support it.
Just give me 1 second. Let's see if I can play here. Could you hear that? Perfect. Okay, so we'll bear with me as we skip through this ad.
Oh, no, sorry. So I'll just, and I
Okay.
can't necessarily. Can you play it? I can't hear it. Can others hear it?
Nope, there's no audio for the video on my end.
Would you be able to share the link, Gurjashan, and maybe we can share
Yes.
the video on our end?
I'll drop the link in the chat. Give me 1 second. And if it doesn't work, we can give everyone a few minutes, and I'll give timestamps to watch the videos on our own.
Yep, I should be good to pull it up on my end. I'm just gonna wait till the ad finishes playing before screen sharing. There we go. And then just let me know if y'all can hear it once I hit play.
What does it take to create a healthy, vibrant world? And more to the point, why are we not achieving what we all sense is possible? Slide, please. My relationship to these questions came about 20 years ago when my business partner, Dimitri Petropoulos, and I had the opportunity to buy the business turnaround firm where we were both working. And we had a choice at that point. We could continue on the path that we were already on, a comfortable path, or we could go with the path that was in our hearts. And that was the path of making the world a better place. We quickly started consulting to community organizations, and it was such fun. We were all over the country and all over the continent working with folks who were actually doing the work on the ground. And we were at the top of our game in absolutely every way. Clients loved the work that we were doing. Except that after 5 years, we realized that we had been working with groups all across the continent, and that none of their communities were any better off. We had changed our lives to change the world, and nothing was changing. The more we talk with people around communities and around the world now, the more we realize that our frustration was absolutely not unique, that many of you may be feeling that frustration, that we're working harder and harder and the problems still remain. Poverty, AIDS, education. And so we started to look at what is going on here. Let's look at these plans that these people are doing, and whether they're nonprofit organizations, whether they're businesses, whether they're government offices, whether they're volunteer groups, social enterprises. Let's look at those plans. And the more we looked at their plans, the more we actually started to look at strategic planning itself. We learned that strategic planning actually has its origins in the battlefields of ancient Greece. The word strategos actually means a high-ranking military official. And so strategic planning is really good and really intended for winning short-term battles. But it absolutely cannot create the healthy, vibrant, resilient, humane world that we all want. Well, realizing this, Dimitri and I took out of the closet that old business turnaround hat, and we put it back on and we dusted it off, only this time we aimed it at strategic planning itself. And the moment we did that, everything we thought we knew about how change happens flew out the window. We had been under the assumption that change is hard, that change happens slowly, it happens incrementally. And that's not the change we were seeing. The change we were seeing was joyful and graceful. And it was happening so fast that groups actually couldn't catch up with how fast the change was happening. What was at the root of this were two questions. What kind of world do we really want? And what is the path that will get us there? Slide, please. So what kind of world do we really want? When we ask groups, they tell us that they want a world without AIDS. They want a world without poverty. They want to fix the broken education system. And what we found, very much like what Carrie was talking about before, is that we talk about what we don't want, but that we're not really talking about the world we do want. We started to think about this in terms of the math we learned in grade school. Next slide, please. In grade school, we learned that if we add a +1 to a -1, we get 0, right? And what we found is if we eliminate a negative condition in our communities, we're not achieving something possible and powerful. We're achieving 0. We're getting to stasis. But when we aim for +1 and we aim for what's possible, that's where our power is. And our power is there for a couple of reasons. First of all, we can't have a healthy, vibrant world if we have poverty. So we have to cure poverty. But we're not doing it just focused right there. What we're doing is aiming and curing poverty on the way to what's possible, on the way to something bigger and better. The other reason, though, that our power lies in what's possible is because it's actually more practical to aim for what's possible. And I'm going to share a little bit about how that works in just a couple minutes. So we know where we're aiming. Our first question, what do we really want? We want what's at that end. We want that healthy, vibrant, thriving world. Okay, Aldi, so how are you going to get there? And that's what groups always would say to us. Okay, it's great. We've got this great vision. We all have this wonderful, what are we all going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya and it'll all be there. Well, what we found is that we actually know how to create the path to the future we want. Slide, please. And each and every one of you know how to do it and have probably done it today.
I think we can pause it there. And so in the video, as Hildy continues, she gives the example of how all of us know what paths to take. And essentially, the answer lies in reverse engineering. We reverse engineer every single part of our life. One example of that is going to the airport. When you know you have a flight at 5 p.m., you know that, oh, it's going to take me 2 hours at the airport, so I need to reach the airport 2 hours in advance. That's 3 p.m. It's going to take me 1 hour to get there, so I need to leave my home at 2. It's also going to take me 2 hours to wrap up work, so that's already at noon, but I also need to take care of um, cooking food, freezing food, cleaning. I also need to pack my bags. Oh my God, maybe I should not sleep tonight, I'll, but still, even with all these factors and stresses, we are able to reach the airport and catch those flights. The reverse engineering happens every day in regular tasks, but also because we're not paying attention to it, it goes unnoticed. And when it comes to planning for bigger projects, when it comes to starting initiatives, that's when we start to question, oh, how will we do it? I we don't have the right tools to move forward right now. We don't have the right number of human resources to move forward right now. We cannot do this. So that's where the whole concept of envisioning your collective future, your larger future, comes in. And then from there, you reverse engineer. So we'll proceed into the presentation. I'm going to pull back the screen and please let me know if you can see this on your ends.
Yep, I can see it on my end.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So that brings us to what is the future we want to create. And this is where I'd like us to pause. For your individual projects, think about the minus, 0, and +1. I'm assuming you have already identified a problem you're trying to solve. Then think about, okay, how do we get to 0? And then how do we add something? How do we get to that positive point? So let's self-reflect for 3 minutes, and at 35, we'll do a group share and keep it very brief. Okay, so Avesi or Mike, would either of you want to share that through your initiative, what's the future that you and your team want to create?
I can go first. Okay, so for Mind Trail, the future we want to create is somewhere where youth mental health feels less like something that is just an afterthought, but it's actually included into institutions from the get-go. So we want people to go into universities with the mindset of them knowing they're going to be supported by the platforms that are available by their university. And so that's what we're trying to get with Mindtrail. So by integrating that into different institutions, we want there to be a future where a 17, 18-year-old can go into university and know that they have their mental health supported by actual simple activities that improve their mental wellness.
Thanks a lot for sharing that. Um, Mike, do you want to participate?
So Mike mentioned in the chat that they can't currently speak at the moment, but were they mentioned going to kind of type the response.
Sure, thank you. So let's move along, and this brings us to four lenses. So now that we have briefly thought about,
Josh, oh, sorry,
Yep.
one thing. I think you left Hugo out. Hugo's also
Oh,
there.
sorry, I'm sorry. I don't see you on my end. Hugo, do you want to share about your project?
No problem about skipping me. I think right now it's all a bit we're really taking baby steps as to how we want to approach our R&D stage, because our R&D stage could look like so many different things all at once. Like our initial idea is our core idea is to take care of urban waste, and then the subcategory of that is urban waste from breweries, and the subcategory of that is the drying process and like the market behind that waste. And then even below that, then there's our initial product that we're thinking of doing, which is pet treats. But throughout that, there's so many opportunities for us to discover new products that we could develop. And it's just always we have to be really careful about those initial steps that we make, because like it's not something that we'd like to reverse on. Like we don't have to go back on our initial ideas. So just like really setting those up is crucial.
Definitely, it's important to recognize what stages of the project planning you are in, and also to be conscious of the fact that what strengths you have and which direction you go into. And I hope that this activity, as you do it, with respect to different ideas you're looking at, would support in giving that direction and connecting to that collective vision. And also, as in your projects you move along, there will be times when you'll have to pause and when you'll have to maybe take a few steps back and reconsider, look at different feedback, look at how the product is getting reactions in the market, and make changes accordingly. So recognizing that is important, but also being agile and being flexible and open to change also supports in the project planning as well as in the long run. Um, okay, I believe that was all. Okay, so we'll move along. This brings us to something called the four lenses. This is essentially a framework that is coming from Climate Change Makers Challenge. YIC runs that usually in the spring. So if you're interested, please check out the website and you can come back and join next spring as well. And it centers around four values. First is equity and justice, then practical, two-eyed seeing, and systems. And the reason I'm bringing these up is it's important to consider these, think of these in your project planning process, in general in life, but also in this context for the innovation challenge, because these also relate to your rubric. So equity and justice is when you're asking yourself questions like who benefits from project, or who may be harmed by our initiative or the product, or who gets to shape the solution. If is there anybody who's missing from the conversations? So this is where you'll be identifying your stakeholders, and you'll be identifying how you want to consult them and how you want to proceed with your project idea. And moving on is the practical lens. This is where it's more focused on the feasibility. What would it take for you to get to your solution? So in the last slide, we went over the future you want to envision. So what would it take for you to arrive at that ideal vision of the future? Uh, and then is the two-eyed seeing, where you essentially bring multiple perspectives together. How does indigenous knowledge combined with your lived experience and academic or scientific knowledge support in your learnings, support the growth of your project, and benefit the community as a whole? Um, and at the end is systems. What are different barriers in the systems that might hinder your progress? How can you overcome them? And then what are the other things that the system does that affect you directly and indirectly? And these connect to the rubric because equity and justice directly helping you identify your stakeholders, supports you in your problem identification as well as um, launch plan and establishing the context. Being practical supports you with the quality of innovation as well as overcoming the barriers. The two-eyed seeing supports with not only your environmental social impact, but also building your general project idea. And from the very beginning, establishing it within the community so that you're not just adding elements for the sake of it, but creating a system that actually thrives the vision that you set out with. And system at the end, obviously, the integration of the launch plan, different variables and barriers, and helping you not only identify that, but also building on the strengths of your team and creating a path forward. As I said before, if you are interested in more projects at YIC, you can check out the website, and the summer challenge would, sorry, the climate change makers would be coming back in the spring. We'll start building on the equity and justice lens, which covers who benefits, who may be harmed, who gets to shape the solution you're working on. And one way to do that is through ripple mapping. And we'll come back to the example by Alex. Just a brief overview in case you missed it in the beginning of the presentation. Alex is an urban farmer who is dealing with issues of losing their crop due to climate change, leading to a drop in income. Their crop gets destroyed, and they're looking for ways to not only have a sustainable livelihood, a sustainable yield from their crops, but also supporting their community and the local food bank. So I'll be asking you this question. Who else would care about the project? And you can speak your answers, or if you want to add them in the chat, please go ahead and add them. Who else would care about Alex's project or the idea? This is where we are identifying the stakeholders. I don't want to put people in the spot. But think in the context of, okay, you're supporting an initiative related to farming and agriculture in an urban space. Who are the people who are probably benefiting from this farm? Who is related to this farm?
I think if I can hop in, I might say there is a potential for small businesses and restaurants that um, and also in looking at areas that are like quote unquote like food deserts, so that don't have access to some of those, the potential of like some of the things there. Um, I think another one would be potential people running shelters for people without housing, trying to address some of the often other realities that come with like food and things there. I don't know if my answer makes sense, but um,
It definitely does, and thanks for sharing. So I had anticipated some of these responses, but definitely food deserts, small businesses, uh, to come in. Local government is one of them for sure. Thanks for adding that in the chat. Um, And now we'll see how all these different stakeholders that have been identified, it could be family, it could be other farmers in the neighboring areas, neighbors, uh, insurance providers, the food bank that Alex works with or supports, food policy researchers who are doing research on the farm or in the region. And we'll see how we can sort of better look at these in terms of our ripple mapping. Sorry, I'm just closing the chat. So when it comes to the ripple, you'll see I have three different circles here. The first is the inner core. So these are people who are directly impacted. And these would include family, employees at the farm, other neighboring farmers, and customers who buy from the farm. Maybe they go every other day to buy eggs. Maybe they go and get their grains and fresh produce from this farm. So they're the ones who will be directly impacted by the work of this farm. If a crop gets destroyed, these people will probably not be able to either have that income come in or to get the produce that they want to buy. And then the secondary, we have other neighbors. We have the food bank who gets supported by the additional produce from the farm. There will be city planners involved or school programs who get access to the farm. And lastly is the larger tier, which is outside of the ripple. These are people who may not in the first place be aware of what's going on, but they might they would be able to support you and they're still related to the cause. So insurance providers who are providing insurance against any natural disasters or anything that goes wrong on the farm, the city government, as they are the decision-making body. And then this is where the food policy researchers also come in. So this is one way of organizing your stakeholders. You can go with your inner core, and then who else is impacted by the farm? That's food banks, city planners. And then you ask yourself the question, who else is impacted? Then you go to the city government. And essentially, you can ask this question again and again. Some practitioners also recommend that you ask this question 7 times. So ask yourself, once you're done with one circle, ask again, who else is impacted? And then ask the same question again for 7 times so that you can identify all your stakeholders. I also know that for the innovation challenge, there was a specific workshop on stakeholder identification and engagement that went over Menlo's matrix. So this is the power interest grid. So this is another way of once you have not only identifying the stakeholders, but also your strategy on how you want to engage with them. And if you want to learn more about this, you can reach out to the team and access the recording for that workshop that was offered earlier in the challenge. So this brings us to collective enoughness. In terms of looking at the bigger idea, the highest potential idea, or the future that you envision for with respect to the project you're working on, it's also important to recognize that one individual doesn't have all that it needs to make this project successful. But together, us as a community, we have enough resources to make that happen. So this is where essentially you need to tie those knots, identify the risks, and flip them into assets. One example could be that maybe you're missing an essential skill on your team. That's when you start looking for external partners and ask that question that we asked for stakeholders. Who else cares about this? And then reach out to them. Maybe this is what you do to get more information, get feedback on your project. And as you're doing this, you'd be also thinking of, okay, how can we make it more accessible for people to be part of our project? So does it mean accounting for different accessibility needs? Does it mean accounting for different time zones or deadlines? That's where all of it comes in. And this is the idea of collective enoughness, that one person probably does not have enough, but all of us together have all it takes. And this brings us to a last activity before we wrap up the presentation. I will be switching screens. So I'll be showing you a template that will allow you to map some of the assets and support you in preparing timelines. And please let me know if you see this. Do you see a Google document?
Yep, we can see it.
Perfect. Okay. So this is another project planning approach that I'm showcasing here. Your group doesn't necessarily have to follow the same format. This is one of the approaches, just to guide you. And if you already have a format, you can see how you can build on that and make it better. A few key things that have been integrated here. First is the RACI matrix. So that's the responsibility assignment matrix. R stands for responsibility, A stands for accountability, C is consulted, and I is informed. So as you're going through different project partners, maybe you're probably assigning different tasks. So identifying who's responsible for doing a specific task, and then establishing accountability, who are they reporting to, who's answerable, and then who else needs to be consulted, who's missing from the conversation, who should be involved, and then which are the people that need to be informed. And this also relates to the other matrix that we went over. Then establishing a deadline, make sure that you have some sort of flexibility in your deadline to account for any delays that happen, and always add a buffer. And a check for the four lenses or different approaches so that your project stays aligned with the rubric. Uh, I'm assuming that at this stage into the project, all teams have started brainstorming and are refining their ideas. I do know that some of them have also submitted their videos, so they're working on their pitch. So they're refining their ideas for the pitch. How would the presentation look like? What are uh, the different aspects of their idea that they want to highlight? And moving along is also measuring, and this brings to KPIs, so some key priorities that you want to make sure that you're measuring your success against. And then finalizing the draft. If you're using a presentation or if you're making a video, then final edit of the video, and then rehearsing it before you're submitting that or before your final presentation. In the same document, I also have additional resources. So after the presentation, if you want to come back to some of these and want to build on this learning, you can access these links. What I will do is copy this and I'll add it to the chat, so all of you have access to it. This is the document where all of you have access, so I'd recommend that you create a copy for your own purposes. Please don't edit directly into this document. And recognizing, Jessica, how are we on time?
We're still good. We have a few minutes. I know we started a little bit later, so we're all good on things.
Okay, can we give 5 minutes for everyone to just access the link and download the file for their reference? And if people need to start filling in to practice, or if they have any questions, they can ask about the template right now.
Yeah, for sure. That's all good.
Okay, so 5 minutes it is. And anybody who has questions, please feel free to ask. Okay, let's come back. And yeah, I hope all of you got a chance to make a copy, and then this supports you as you are working towards your final pitch. This you can use the RSEI framework to divide different tasks and then establish some accountability, and also build a buffer so that you can make your submissions well before the deadlines. And this brings us to our final deliverables and next steps. So as I'm aware, there's a final pitch that's coming, and the recommended format is 4 minutes of presentation, which it's preferred, I believe, if groups present themselves in a live setting, followed by a Q&A period. And as you're working towards your final pitch as well, don't forget the key pillars of the rubric: identifying the problem, quality of innovation, environmental social impact, and your implementation plan. If you have any questions from me or from the team representatives that are here, please feel free to ask them. If you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can scan the QR code or also find me on Instagram. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining and coming out and taking the time for the session. And all the best for your final pitches, too.